and being funded by Leon Black at the time. But he's meeting with the guy who ran the entire CIA side of the State Department, who's then presumably meeting with Epstein to get funding for the Carnegie Endowment. I mean, why? I don't think Bill Burns was participating in trafficking or necessarily, I don't think he was going to Epstein for girls. He went to his.
That's reassuring.
What I'm saying is you go to Epstein. In fact, there's a great piece on this if you want to look it up. It's at the National Endowment of Humanities, I think. If you look up Philip Mosley, Cold War organization man.
Can Jimmy Wales stop asking me for fucking money? Just go to the CIA. They give you enough.
Yeah, well, he sort of does if you look at Jimmy
no,
Wales.
it's CIA-pedia. All right.
He's very close with James Clapper.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this piece is we paid for this piece to be published. This is the National Endowment for Humanities, which is a government-funded endowment. And it's called How Philip Mosley Helped Soviet Studies Moderate American Policy. And so you'll see here, in 46, you see Iron Curtain descended over Europe. They only had about, 24 experts on the Soviet Union, and even 38 Soviet analysts, only 12 of whom spoke Russian. And so what they did is it's that same network. So Donald Barr went straight from the OSS to Columbia. And what they did is they pumped up these Columbia and Harvard Russian institutes. If you just run a control F in this for intelligence. Yeah, and then go to the next hit.
Yeah, we got 5.
Yes, okay. So you'll see what happens here. So this guy, Philip Mosley, who's running the Sovietology department at Columbia, basically pioneers this nexus where Columbia University would serve as the long arm of the CIA for doing exchange programs with people in the Soviet Union, with bringing dissidents over, with getting copies of Soviet literature so that the CIA could analyze it. You'll see here, it says this sentence, sitting at the intersection of scholarship, intelligence, and philanthropy, Mosley created a field in which practitioners like himself could imagine, as Secretary of State William Rogers noted, no line between government and academic work. No line between the government and the universities. This is why I always say universities are not what they seem. There's no private market in higher education in America. Harvard was set to receive, when Trump was on the day of Trump's inauguration, Harvard was owed $9 billion from the federal government in grants.
It was that high?
Yes, look up Harvard, $9 billion.
Also, can we Google Harvard size of endowment? I forget the number off the top of my head.
Like $56 billion.
Right, so why the fuck do they need that money?
Well, they invest in the very actions that they facilitate. What they get with this money is they serve as the long arm of the State Department, the Central Intelligence Agency, and the U.S. military for doing the sorts of work that the U.S. does not want formal fingerprints on. This is how you have the Harvard economists going in to shape the economic reforms of Russia in the 1990s. In fact, we should do a separate thing on that in a second. But even if you look up within this own article, if you just run a search for like CIA, you'll see that, like Philip Mosley, for example, or just like you'll see 25 mentions, but you'll see that he not only set up all these CIA fronts within Columbia, but he had So part of this was subsidized directly by the CIA. But you'll see that he even had how many different security clearances? If you go down a couple more, just hit the down button.
In security clearances.
Yeah, let's see. CIA financials. Okay, so after the CIA's proposed Eurasian Institute failed, he ended up setting up a different one. But scroll down to CIA and Rand. CIA, boom. Yeah, here you go. Here are all the security clearances that this Columbia professor held here. National Security Council, CIA, State Department, Office of Naval Research. I think they have, 9 in total? And this is all to merge Columbia with the Central Intelligence Agency. Do you know what Hillary Clinton, where she's employed right now? She's employed by University of Columbia. They have something called... Where's Mike Pompeo right now?
Columbia?
The University of Columbia. The CIA director...
half of them's gone. I don't know if you've seen him lately.
Yeah, that's true.
That Ozempic's hitting, baby.
But, and so where's Victoria Nuland now? Where's she employed?
Oh, no.
The University of Columbia.
No.
And not only that, they're all at the exact same place.
God damn it.
Type in Columbia SIPA, SIPA. This is the School of International Public Affairs. Look this up, and specifically within that, it's the Institute of Global Politics. But all of the major universities, if you want to make it big as a university, your biggest customer is not the students paying you $60K in tuition. It's the federal government, because you are running centers and institutes out of there that are helping a CIA operation or a State Department operation. Yeah, so this is the place. It's got Victoria Nuland, Hillary Clinton, Mike Pompeo, and a bunch of other CIA operatives on USAID payroll like Maria Ressa. But you can just type in Mike Pompeo, Hillary Clinton, Victoria Nuland. You'll see they're all there. They went straight from Victoria Nuland was the Undersecretary for Political Affairs. That's the head of the political section. That's number 3 at the State Department. The JFK files showed. Yes, here you go. So Columbia
That's an old
SIPA.
shot of him, though.
Yeah, it's true. Yes,
There's a lot of
less
Papa
pixels
Johns
now.
ago.
But they're all there. The Victoria Nuland ran the CIA side of the State Department. Arthur Schlesinger in 1961, in his 15-page memo to JFK, he was the senior White House advisor to JFK. JFK gets in 61. They immediately have a problem with the CIA. Bay of Pigs, all the Cuba stuff. JFK wanted to go on a different foreign policy track. His top advisor writes him a 15-page memo. This all got declassified in March with the JFK files. It's an incredible memo, and it's called, the title of it is called CIA Reorganization. And what Schlesinger says to JFK is, if we don't reorganize the CIA, you will not be able to administer U.S. foreign policy, because the State Department is being co-opted by the CIA. And one of the ways they do this is by control of the political affairs branch of the State Department. So I was in the Economic Bureau for state. That's, things around trade. We have another bureau for political affairs. And this has to do with the domestic political affairs in a foreign country. So every embassy will have a political section. The political section is actually the most powerful section in every embassy. The head of the political section for any embassy acts as the charge d'affaires when the head of the embassy is out. So the ranking order is, U.S. ambassador, then deputy, and then head of political affairs. Now, what Schlesinger told JFK in this memo in 61 was that on the day of JFK's inauguration, 48% of all State Department, quote, employees in the political section were not actually State Department employees at all. They were CIA under diplomatic cover. And so while they were parked at a U.S. embassy, they did not answer in the chain of command within the State Department. They were covert operatives for organized political warfare being carried out by the CIA. But because they dominated the political section of the State Department, they could set their own political policy for the country. If the State Department did not want to overthrow that regime, but the political section wanted, the CIA did, then the CIA could simply use the bandwidth of the political section of the embassy to make contact with the various dissident groups, to run money to them, to help them logistically, to connect them, and run a parallel operation without it observing the typical White House National Security Council chain of command. And he gave examples where he said in some embassies, 80% of the political affairs staff are CIA, not even State Department at all. In fact, who was Joe Biden's CIA director? Bill Burns. What was Bill Burns before he became head of the CIA?
A buddy of Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, yes. In the 1990s, Bill Burns was the head of the political section for the U.S. Embassy in Russia, in Moscow. So he ran the CIA. Bill Burns, we're told, never worked a day at the CIA in his whole life before he was handed the reins to be the CIA director. Mm-hmm. Right? He was a State Department guy the whole time. But where was he at State? He was the head of the political affairs section for Russia in the 1990s when we were running the whole Harvard operation, which we should get to after this. But the second part of this,
I don't know where to go with this guy, bro. It's like just 4 trains at any one time.
But then Bill Burns was the head of the entire political affairs branch of the State Department before he became Deputy Secretary of State. But he ran the CIA side of the State Department until 2014, when he then met with Epstein 3 times when he went on to run the Carnegie Endowment, which again puts Epstein right there. How's Epstein, while he's working out deals with Ehud Barak, this is right at the time of the Carbine investments and all this, he's simultaneously meeting
all
with...
post-conviction, by the way.
Right, all post-conviction, and being funded by Leon Black at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he's meeting with the guy who ran the entire CIA side of the State Department, who's then presumably meeting with Epstein to get funding for the Carnegie Endowment. I mean, I don't think Bill Burns was participating in trafficking or necessarily, I don't think he was going to Epstein for girls. He went to his...
That's reassuring.
What I'm saying is you go to Epstein for money. You tap into the donor network around Epstein. But who was the Undersecretary for Political Affairs while Bill Burns at State, while Bill Burns was CIA director? It was Victoria Nuland. And now Victoria Nuland is at Columbia, where they merged the intelligence world with with academia and outside funding from the foundations. And that's where Donald Barr went right after the OSS. Right as the CIA was pumping up Columbia, he goes right to Columbia and then to the Dalton School where they recruit Epstein. But on the Harvard thing, there's a great, if you go to The Nation, if you go to Google and you type in The Nation, the Harvard Boys Do Russia, the article is called. And this is a great example of like how this works.
That's a great title.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's a million pieces on this, even in the Harvard Crimson.
Wait, they got Harvard on Harvard crime.
Yeah.
Good for them. All right.
Yeah.
Nice work, Crimson.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Harvard Boys Do Russia after 7 years of economic quote-unquote reform financed by billions of dollars in the U.S. This is, when is this from, Deef? 1998?
Yeah. So we were privatizing Russia at the time. Russia threw up the white flag, in 91.
Yep.
Yeltsin basically puts, his whole trust in the U.S. government to make Russia a small L liberal Western democracy and to privatize the trillions of dollars in state-held assets. The entire Soviet Union, was basically under a communist government structure. It was all held publicly.
Yep.
So it's being sold off to Wall Street in London, and it's being done by Harvard University by way of USAID. So type in, for example, Harvard Institute.
Was Larry Summers involved with this?
Yes, Larry Summers and Jeffrey
Always
Sachs.
is.
So Chubais was basically the U.S.-aligned oligarch that we ran through much. This is Anatoly Chubais, a darling of U.S. and Western financial establishments. He was the oligarch that we, in addition to a few other folks that we can get to, that we ran the Harvard USAID CIA op through here in order to privatize Russia's economy and sell it off to Harvard University and George Soros. So essential to the not even joking. Essential to the implementation of Chubais' policies were the enthusiastic support of the Clinton administration, and who was, remember, 1998, Ehud Barak is the prime minister of Israel. Jeffrey Epstein is visiting the Clinton White House 17 times. And you have this whole sort of Russia. We'll get to that in a sec. So, and its key representative for foreign economic assistance in Moscow, the Harvard Institute for International Development. Okay, so this was who the Clinton White House was deputizing to go into Russia and get them to privatize and set up legal and economic reforms that the State Department wanted. We tapped the Harvard Institute of International Development to do that. Now, if that name sounds familiar, what does the AID stand for? What does the AID stand for in USAID? It's the U.S. Agency for International Development. Yeah. This is Harvard's version of it, the Harvard Institute for International Development.
Institute, agency, same shit, different
and in
word.
fact, they were funded by USAID to do this.
Oh, I love that.
This is how the waterfall, this is how the structure is, right? So the Harvard Institute for International Development, using the prestige of Harvard's names and connections in the admin, Harvard Institute of International Development officials acquired virtual carte blanche over the U.S. economic aid program to Russia with minimal oversight by the government agencies involved. This is how you have plausible deniability, minimal oversight. With this access and their close alliance with Chubais and his circle, they allegedly profited on the side, and we'll get to how this happened. Yet few Americans are aware of the Harvard Institute of International Development's role in Russian privatization and its role in taxpayer funds. Now, before we get to this next section, let me do a little bit of world building here. Okay, So you're going to see that this is the U.S.-Russian Investment Symposium at Harvard's Kennedy School. Where was Epstein most active within Harvard? Go to Google, pull up a Google image of Jeffrey Epstein, Harvard.
Alan Dershowitz's office?
Well, the Harvard Kennedy School in particular. He gave millions of dollars through the Wexner Foundation, specifically to the Harvard Kennedy Center. The Harvard Kennedy Center is what is used to do government reforms. Yes, so these are millions of dollars that Epstein gave to the Harvard Kennedy School. In fact, if you want to know another really fun thing on this, type in pull up a new tab and go to New York Post. New York Post, Gary Kasparov, Sudan.
Kasparov with a K.
Yeah, with a K. Sudan, Harvard.
It's going to be good enough.
Yeah, there you go. Wait, Jane Street coup. Is this the... Okay, we'll pull up that first one.
Why is it pulling up all the SBF stuff?
Okay, here you go. All right, so look at this.
Wall Street Titan.
Yeah, no,
wait, go back to that.
That's the
Go
one.
back to that show.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
All right.
Wall Street Titan who hired SBF defrauded into spending $7 million on AK-47s, grenades for South Sudan coup plot.
Let's talk about this. All right. So
the suit's coming off. Shit's getting real.
So this is super, super recent, okay? And we're going to come back to the Russia story in a sec, Russia and Harvard, because actually one more thing before I talk about this. I'm sorry, one more tab. Penny Pritzker, Harvard Corporation. Who's running Harvard right now? Penny Pritzker, Harvard Corporation, and then you can see that, you can just, if you pull that up right now, just so everyone can see that I'm not making this up. So she is currently running the Harvard Corporation, the hedge fund on top of Harvard University. Now,
the hedge fund.
Yes. Now, yes, because that's the endowment. They wash this all through. They invest in hedge fund and private equity and alternative asset funds. That's how they make the money on their $56 billion endowment. So now type Penny Pritzker, Ukraine reconstruction, because I want to connect this so it's not ancient history. I'm going to show you how Harvard is doing today what Harvard was doing in the 1990s, running the same operation. So Penny Pritzker, while she was the head of the Harvard Corporation, running the investments of the Harvard Management Fund, was simultaneously serving as the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine's economic recovery, starting in September 2023. This is the same thing Harvard was doing to make billions of dollars for the Harvard endowment in Russia.
Yeah. So
I just want to pull that up so that when we go back to to put the button on the Harvard Kennedy School, go back to that one right there. So here's what happened. We again have this Russia and Harvard for CIA covert action. So what happened here was you have this co-founder of Jane Street, which is this major Wall Street trading firm.
Where SBF got his start.
Right, where SBF got his start. And what you'll see here is, by way of Gary Kasparov was
the chess player?
Well, the chess player who became the CIA State Department-backed opposition figure in Russia. In the early 2000s, they ran him for president. He became the head of all of these, USAID, NGOs in Russia. He was an early Putin dissident in the early 2000s. Using the clout of his international fame. Now he's been living in New York, I think, for the past decade and some. But what you'll see here is this was an operation to run guns to Sudan. And what happened was these, so if you scroll down, I'm going to walk you through this. Okay, so you have Granieri, 53, allegedly provided $7 million in two payments after meeting with Ajak at a Midtown Manhattan condominium.
In 2024.
Yes, and that his financing was vital to the plan. And if you scroll down, I'll say, okay, so he's a longtime supporter of human rights causes, and he thought that he was just paying for human rights affairs in Sudan. So if you scroll down, the case also references chess champion Gary Kasparov, though he's not named as a defendant in a wrongdoing. Ajak, a former child soldier in Sudan, who resettled in the U.S. and studied at Harvard's Kennedy School and worked as a World Bank economist before becoming a South Sudanese opposition activist. he and Keach, the other guy from Harvard Kennedy School who get rolled up in this, met with an undercover agent and for weapons in a Phoenix warehouse. And if you scroll down one more time, this is where your aid money is buying. So defense attorneys allege U.S. authorities were aware of the plan, citing a public authority defense and claiming the State Department told AJAC in October 2023 it would not support a non-democratic regime change. They accused, so basically they say the financing was allegedly arranged through meetings, including at Paul Weiss, go down one more.
The law firm.
Yes. And what you'll see is basically these two, the financier, the outside financier, and if you scroll down to the Kasparov reference, you'll see, basically Kasparov is also at the Harvard Kennedy School, where he's been running these anti-Putin ops for about 20 years now. He'd been working with the Kennedy School since the early 2000s. And so Kasparov introduces these two, Sudanese opposition activists who are also getting, fellows getting paid by the Harvard Kennedy School to work with this outside financier to get money for guns so that Sudanese rebels can use them, presumably, to kill Russians in the area, or at least Russian-backed rebel groups, because right now we're in a proxy war with Russia over much of Africa. A bunch of these U.S. and French-backed governments in Africa have been toppled by what are seen as Russian coups. We give money and arms to groups in Niger and Chad and Cote d'Ivoire and Sudan. Russia is making a play for those same minerals and those same natural resources, and so they back rebel groups as well. And so we need to run guns to the Sahel is the big belt in Africa that this runs through. So we're doing sort of Iran-Contra for Sudanese and Ivory Coast and Niger rebel groups.
Is that how you say it? Niger?
Yeah.
I'm always so afraid to say. I just pointed out one on the map.
Keep it safe.
That one, yeah.
But it's running through Harvard University here. And so back to what Harvard was doing in the 1990s, if you go back to that first article we were on.
Joe's been cooking today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot of tabs right now.
It's the Harvard Boys Do Russia one. There you go. Okay. So you'll see that Harvard was running the economic aid, and because of this, you couldn't FOIA them. Because it's run.
You couldn't FOIA them?
Well, they're not a government agency.
Oh, that's right.
This is how
Shell company, basically.
Right. This is exactly how CISA at DHS structured the censorship work. They said, "Oh, well, we're hiring Stanford University to to do this work, and you can't. They're private universities, so you can't get the public documents unless they're subpoenaed by Congress or come out in a lawsuit." But you see what happens here is if you go to USAID in this, you'll see what happened was USAID then funds the Harvard Institute for International Development to do this. So you have the U.S. government paying Harvard to advance U.S. government causes, and what does Harvard get out of it? Well, type in Soros. Just Control F for Soros here. Okay. So here's what happened. In 1995, Chubais, that's the U.S.-friendly Russian oligarch, organized insider auctions of prime national properties. The Harvard Management Company, which invests the university's endowment, and billionaire speculator George Soros were the only foreign entities allowed to participate. The Harvard Management Company and Soros became significant shareholders in Russia's second largest steel mill, as well as in Sudanko Oil, whose reserves exceed those of Mobil. This is ExxonMobil. Harvard Management Corporation and Soros also invested in Russia's high-yield IMF subsidized, domestic bond market. So basically, these are insider auctions. Harvard gets paid by the government to do this, and then they get first pick. They get insider trading on the very CIA, USAID ops they're tasked to do. This is the business model of Harvard. This is why people say that Harvard is a hedge fund with a university attached, because they are insiders. They're on the ground. They're the ones who are using the backing of the U.S. government to coerce foreign leaders to make economic changes to their entire industrial structure, and then they get close hold, insider, no competition bids on the very assets that they are commanding foreign governments to privatize. They ran the same operation in Ukraine. and Soros, who also, through the Open Society, and you'll see USAID is there too if you look at the bottom. According to Williamson, the U.S. assistance program in Russia was rife with such conflicts of interest involving the Harvard Institute of International Development and their USAID-funded Chubais allies, Harvard Management Corporation managers, favored Russian bankers, Soros, and insider expatriates working in Russia's nascent market.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.